Good afternoon and welcome back to Fire, the Black Press USA and the National Newspaper Publicists Association live broadcast. Reverend Raphael Warnock grew up in public housing, just to give you an idea of just how far he's come. Born to a father who was a hard-working veteran, small businessman, and a preacher, Raphael Warnock went on to enroll in Morehouse College. He feared that he wouldn't have the money to pay for his tuition. Nonetheless, he went on to greater heights. Pell Grants helped him to graduate. Then he went on to become the senior pastor at Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta, the former pulpit of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He was the youngest pastor selected to serve in that leadership role at the historic church. Now, Reverend Warnock, while he preaches faith, he knows he needs a little bit more than just faith. He needs your votes. He's running for Senate, and there's a huge runoff coming up in January in Georgia. Joining us right now is the Reverend Raphael Warnock and our president and CEO, Dr. Benjamin Chavis. Welcome, gentlemen.
Great to be here with you.
And we'll jump right into it. We know we got limited time. We know your schedule is packed, and the Black Press really appreciates you giving us some time. We're in the middle of a pandemic, obviously. How are people getting out the vote?
Thank you so much. Wonderful to be here with you. Listen, there is a movement here in Georgia. In this moment in which we are dealing with a pandemic, as you point out, COVID-19. And this summer we saw, in the wake of tragic flashpoints, George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor. We saw Rayshard Brooks, whose eulogy I delivered. We saw people of all races rise up in this country, and they masked up in order to protect themselves against one virus, COVID-19, to fight against an age-old virus that I call COVID-16-19, our ongoing struggle with racism in our country and the need to build a more perfect union. The good news is that people are rising up in this moment. Georgia has now flipped blue, and come January 5th, we intend to consummate the deal by sending a young Jewish man, the son of an immigrant, and an African-American man who grew up in public housing, serves now as pastor of Martin Luther King Jr.'s Ebenezer Baptist Church, to the United States Senate. That represents the bending of the moral arc closer to justice and closer to beloved community.
Yeah, and what's been your biggest challenge of late? We know the challenges are far and wide, especially being a Black man running for national office. But what's been of late since the election that led now to this runoff? What do you say has been your biggest challenge?
Well, I got in this race on January 30th, and 6 weeks into the beginning of my race, and I'm a first-time candidate, we found ourselves in the middle of something that none of us alive has ever experienced, a once-in-a-century pandemic that's forced all of us into a virtual space. And the question became, how do you campaign in the middle of a pandemic? How do you connect with your voters? How do you tell your story? And at the same time, as a pastor, I was busy putting my church and its ministry online and worshiping online. But we've pressed through it. We've negotiated the challenges of communicating with voters on the one hand and being very vigilant about keeping people safe on the other hand. And I think we've come up with a good balance. I've been moving all across the state of Georgia on a tour, and our events are largely outside. People are masked, and folks are showing up. And I'm really enjoying meeting and talking with voters all across the state. The logistical challenges notwithstanding, we've been doing drive-through events. And so that's been a challenge, but I think we're pushing through it. And people appreciate the fact that we're trying to engage them and at the same time do our part to keep people safe and alive.
Yeah, and you mentioned how Georgia has turned blue. which is an amazing accomplishment in itself. And generally, when folks vote at the top of the ticket, a lot of times it trickles down to lower in the ticket. Now, you certainly did have a pretty substantial lead against your opponent. Obviously, you didn't get the 50% that would have avoided the runoff, but you certainly was ahead of your opponent. And you mentioned also Mr. Ossoff. And have you guys been in communication, and how are things feeling? I know that by now you have a feel, and by now he has a feel. And both of you are seeking to change the Senate, because if both of you get in, the Democrats will have control of the Senate. So how are you guys feeling at the moment?
We are in a strong position. There's always some drop off from the vote for the presidency and then the races after that. And in the case of my race, which was the third question on the ballot, you had 21 people vying for the same office. There was no primary in my race because I ran in a special election to finish the term of Republican Senator Johnny Isaacson. So there's no primary. Democrats and Republicans were all on the same ballot for the first time during the general election. And because my name begins with a W, Warnock, on a list where you're listed alphabetically, I found myself in the same place I was when my elementary school teacher used to say, "Now, kids, it's time to line up for recess or lunch." I was always the last kid or the kid next to the last kid. And so it was on this ballot. And somehow the people of Georgia resonated with my message in such a way that out of 21 people on a ballot, and my name, number 20, running against the wealthiest member of Congress who had dumped millions of dollars into this race trying to buy this seat, I beat her handily. Finishing in first place. And I intend, we didn't get 50%, but, I don't think many people thought we'd get over 50% with 21 people in a race. Mathematically, that would have been extremely difficult. But we intend to win come January 5th.
Yeah. Dr. Chavis, I know you want to jump in there.
Absolutely. First, I want to congratulate Reverend Warnock for a tremendous victory to get to the runoff. And certainly what will happen early in January in Georgia. I feel like Ray Charles. I got Georgia on my mind. Listen, this is a Georgia race, but it's also a national race. I think all of Black America, all of progressives across the country, Black, white, Latino, Asian American, Native American, no matter what your race, everybody is focused on Georgia. And Reverend Warnock, certainly, look, even though your name starts with a W, the scripture says, the last shall be first. And you came out first. And we are praying that you will come out first also in January. And we hope that Ossoff also comes out first. We need both Senate seats. We need to secure both Senate seats. And of course, John Lewis's funeral was at Ebenezer Church. I think John Lewis would be smiling from his grave to see Georgia not only turn blue in the presidential race, but Georgia turned blue for the history where you have two Senate seats up at the same time. That's unusual for any state. Usually it's staggered. So Georgia, we have an opportunity in Georgia to correct U.S. history, to correct American history, and to affirm Black history, to affirm that Georgia represents more of the future of America than it does the past. And I think with the demographic changes, with the massive voter turnout, what we want to do, Reverend Warnock, we have 18 African-American-owned newspapers throughout the state of Georgia. We're going to make sure that our newspapers in Georgia help participate to GOTV to get that vote out. Even during the pandemic, we know that we have to get that vote out. So I just want to say to you, Reverend Warnock, that you can count on the Black press. You can count on our constituencies across the state, not only in the urban areas, but also in the rural areas. I think the way we win is that we have massive voter turnout in all of the counties, not just the ones that the media may be focused on. The margins are so important. And
Right.
this is going to be a turnout, because I don't have to lecture to you. You know about it. And I just want to say, Doc, I've been following your career many, many years. You and I have had many mutual friends. Theologically, Jim Cone was also one of my mentors. I was there when you gave his eulogy at his funeral at Riverside Church. I was just sitting there in the pew thinking about how proud Dr. Cone from the Black Theology Project to see how things have evolved. And your work there at Ebenezer. We were very proud of you, and let us know whatever we can do to get the word out, because we live in an era where there's a lot of fake news, there's a lot of inaccurate news. People are distracted by sometimes by social media rather than being informed by social media, and particularly Black males. And I just want to salute Black women and Black males, because I think what the voter turnout show is that Black men, women, and millennials all turned out in record numbers in Georgia. And that's good news, not only for Georgia, but good news for all of Black America.
Yeah, and with that, Reverend Warnock, are there any debates planned between you and your opponent? I know that your counterpart, your buddy, Jon Ossoff, he's having some difficulties getting the debate going. What's the situation with you?
I have challenged Senator Loeffler to 3 debates, and last I checked, she has said yes to 1, and so we're scheduled to have a debate, I believe, on December 6th. I think it's the Press Club debate, and we look forward to that conversation.
And as senator, after you're sworn in as senator, if we still have the situation where we have a president who refuses to abdicate, if you will, what do you see doing in your position as senator?
Oh, by the time I'm installed as the next United States Senator, there's no question that Joe Biden will be the president. And so we'll be focused on that agenda, focused on the work that we need to get done. We've lost way too much time around this COVID-19 challenge. The current president spent the whole year denying it and then offering people all kinds of ridiculous cures, following all kinds of crazy conspiracy theories. We've got a lot of work to do. And so we, the people of Georgia, the people of this country need relief. Small businesses are in trouble and shuttering. We should have been providing them the aid that they need months ago. But they found themselves at the back of the line while big corporate giants like Shake Shack and the LA Lakers found themselves at the front of the line. So I'll be very focused on providing COVID relief, doing what we can to stop evictions, to help people to get through this crisis. I'll be very focused on healthcare. We need to make sure that people have access to affordable healthcare in this country. Prices are out of control. We've got too many people in our state and the Medicaid gap because Georgia has refused to expand Medicaid. And we've got 1.8 million Georgians with pre-existing conditions. And these are words, that sometimes get thrown around in politics and people forget who you're actually talking about. It's not just a word. Pre-existing conditions, that's people maybe even you. These are folks with diabetes, hypertension, cancer survivors, COVID survivors. In fact, under the old protocols prior to the Affordable Care Act, there's a way in which a woman means she had a pre-existing condition. And I'm running against someone who clearly doesn't think that healthcare is a human right. And she wants to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. And so we have to stand up to make sure that people have access to healthcare.
Yeah, and along those lines, as you well know, back in May, the House passed the HEROES Act, $2.4 trillion aid to states and to help bolster unemployment benefits, and of course another stimulus payment for families that are hurting. We heard Senator Harris now Vice President-elect Harris had said that she thought stimulus payments should go out every month until the pandemic ended. What's your position? Do the Democrats, the last proposal of $2 trillion, it's months old now. It's they haven't reached a deal, but is that the type of package that's needed, or is it greater now?
We need COVID-19 relief. We haven't seen any kind of relief in several months. The Senate has not failed to go on vacation when it was time for them to go on vacation, both in August and now for the holidays. But evictions haven't gone on vacation. Furloughs have not gone on vacation. Hunger and distress is very much at work. And so the Senate needs to get to work and get people the care that they need. If I were there in the Senate right now, I'd be pushing hard to do that. And I think that while we are providing people with relief, we might as well put people back to work. Our country is overdue for a historic investment in infrastructure. Our roads and our bridges are broken, shamefully broken, bridges falling down. And I think the brokenness of our public and physical infrastructure is indicative of the brokenness that we've seen in our politics now for decades, our inability to get anything done. What I would like to see in this moment, when we're having to do bailouts anyway, is a kind of thinking outside of the box, a kind of reinvestment in infrastructure, bridges, roads, public transportation, high-speed rail, green infrastructure, and the creation of a green energy grid that is so desperately needed. It will help save the environment, will create a more efficient system, and would provide the kinds of jobs with a livable wage that people need in the short term, and position our country to thrive in the long term. There's a lot of division in this country, a lot of hate and a lot of anger. And I think that sometimes when the family is having a big argument, you can keep talking, and sometimes the talking doesn't make it any better. But something about, getting focused on a project. If you get focused on painting the garage or, adding something onto the house, putting down the floor, forgive me, I'm from Savannah, Georgia, get to work, roll up your sleeves. And while we're doing the work, I think we can have some conversations about who we are. I think the demagogues of hate and division are doing a work on all of us. And we need to remember who we are as an American people. We do big things. We build public infrastructure. We build a national highway system that connects all of us. And before that was done, it seemed like, fantasy thinking, I'm sure, to somebody. But now we take it for granted. And I think that the same kind of will that we've had to bail out the banks in 2008 during the Great Recession, the same kinds of resources we put in to 20 years of war making with no end in sight, we ought to invest some of that in the American people and in rebuilding home base.
And I'll shoot one last one to you, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Chavis. I know we got about 2 minutes left. So once again, the debate is December 6th, you said?
I think that's correct.
And where can voters in Georgia cast their ballots safely?
Oh, we want to encourage people to vote early. If you voted before, or if you did, you can go to the Secretary of State's website here in Georgia. If you're not registered to vote, you have until December 7th to register. You can register by December 7th and vote in this election if you didn't vote in the last election. Even if you didn't vote in the general, you can vote in the runoff. You have until December 7th to register. Early in-person voting begins on December 14th. You can mail in your ballot now, starting now, and then January 5th is Election Day. But don't wait until January 5th. It might rain on January 5th. We don't wait until Election Day to vote anymore. There are too many people who need to vote. And while we're dealing with COVID-19, the challenges around that are even more complicated, because you don't want to be, in a line filled with folks. It's just more treacherous now. So why not vote early, in person, vote by mail, spend January 5th just getting the last 2 or 3 people in your circle who haven't voted to the polls.
Dr. Chavis?
Very good. We have thousands of people watching this, not only across Georgia, but across the country. Reverend Warnock, what is your final message of the importance of this runoff in Georgia in the Senate for both seats that are up, not for the future of Georgia and for the future of America?
Was a native of Georgia, born and raised here, now running for the U.S. Senate. I'm glad that Georgia's on everybody's mind these days. And this is a Georgia race, but the future of the country is at stake, as these 2 races will decide the balance of the Senate. You can go to warnock4georgia.com. You can also go to electjon.com. Support these 2 campaigns for the United States Senate. Certainly pray for us, pray for our country. You can volunteer. I'm not encouraging people to come in droves to Georgia. You don't need to drive to Georgia. We've got enough foot soldiers right here on the ground to do what we need to do. But if you want to be a part of this, to encourage other folks to get involved, let them know that they can volunteer digitally. Just go to my website, warnock4georgia.com, click volunteer. You can do the same thing with Jon Ossoff's campaign, Elect Jon, and you can be engaged even from where you are at home. But keep praying for us and keep pushing for us. I think that we are on the brink to something momentous and transformational that will start in this state, but reverberate from sea to shining sea. And I'm just deeply honored to be a part of it.
Well, we certainly, once you get comfortable in the Senate, we certainly hope that you will remember the Black press and come back and talk with us some more and give us some updates.
Absolutely. I grew up reading the Savannah Herald.
All right. Yes,
and then when
absolutely.
I was in Harlem, I read the Black newspaper there, and same thing in Baltimore. So we look forward to that.
Our thanks to your staff as well. You got a great staff there, and we thank them as well. Reverend Ralph Warnock, everybody, he's the next senator out of the state of Georgia. January 5th is the election. December 6th, a debate. So everybody look forward to that as well. Thanks for joining us. Dr. Chavis, we always appreciate the boss checking in. Everybody, stay safe and stay well.
God bless you. Thank you.
God bless.